All right, here we are, finally with day number 21 in this account. I haven't taken a trade since last Tuesday in this account, and there are a lot of reasons why. And finally today I did get active, and I did get very active, in fact. And as you can see, I'm closing with a good result, $216.21. It's almost 9% ROE. However, I just basically got lucky. This should have been a recap of a $30 loss that I was just about to start making the recap on when I saw this insanity that is continuing here on NXTC. I played the first halt resumption and I did well on it. I booked what I guess is a home run. And as we're looking at it right now, it's currently in the seventh halt of the last 35 or 40 minutes. And I'm long done with this thing. I was never planning on playing it on past the first halt. But in any case, I did get some live video today. I did record my entire trade on NXTC right here. So most of the recap today is going to be spent showing you that live video. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time lamenting my trades earlier in the day, my first four. But I will at least give a little bit of information about how I felt leading up to this trade on NXTC. So before I get into my trades from today, I want to talk a little bit about what I was thinking in the days that I was inactive, because that's really important here. And after I closed this day on October 29th, I took a long time to review my progress in the account so far, to review my trades and watch my recaps again, and just try to figure out whether or not my progress in this account was due to positive things or whether it was just kind of me getting lucky. And the reason I did that is because I found myself being happy with this balance of 2,500. I thought, oh, I'm up 25% in a month. That's pretty strong. And I felt good. And I was like, wait a minute, is that really good? And so I took a look back. And what I realized is that my discipline game was really bad, especially in these last 3 days here. Where, I had a lot of sloppy trades, a 33% accuracy. Granted, it's still a green day, but there were a lot of things that I wasn't happy about. And I found myself, especially in my recaps, repeating myself that I'm not happy. And part of that is just because I'm a really hard critic on myself. But I think that a lot of my criticisms in this case were justified. And so like I said in a previous recap, I installed a new discipline, the weightlifting thing for my pre-market checklist. And the very next day, on October 30th, I failed that. And I still tried to make excuses for myself, like, oh, it's okay, you don't need to do that, you can still trade. And I ended up reversing that decision and be like, no, you can't trade. And then the next day, on Friday, the same thing happened again. Or I think it was Thursday, actually, the next thing. Anyway, it kept happening. The last 3 days of last week, I kept breaking my discipline routine. And I was like, man, you can't keep getting away with this. And I had a bit of a heart-to-heart with myself about, like a boss employee type situation where I told myself, like, look, you're great at punishing yourself, but it's not good enough to punish yourself when you make a mistake. You have to just not make these mistakes. And so I kept locking myself out of my account. And this happened 4 consecutive days. 3, I guess, technically. Yesterday I was at my PC. I was ready to trade. I just didn't take any trades. And another relevant thing that I noticed in my progress in this account is the impact that my practice trades have had on me, in that they have been kind of teaching me to be sloppier. And because I'm allowing myself to be sloppier and sort of trying out new things in my practice account, because a lot of the trades between this simulator and my practice trades are close together, I've found it really hard to switch personalities from one to the other. And so what I noticed is that a lot of the things that I was doing in my practice trades were kind of seeping into my simulator account, which is no good. This is to be treated like a live account. And so basically the last 3 days of last week, I just I put my foot down and I was like, nope. You started out with good discipline in this account. Up here, there was a lot of no trade days and stuff where you really stuck to your guns. And I found myself taking sloppy trades and falling into old bad habits. And so I really wanted to make a strong effort to change that, and I did. And another reason that I did that was the account fees that I knew that were coming up on the 4th of November. So the last thing I wanted was to book a huge loss leading up to the account fees, which would drain my balance even further. So here's a look at my trades from today. There were 5 of them, and the only 2 that I'm really happy about are the first one and the last one. This first one on AGRX, this was me intending to scalp a very small amount of pennies. I knew it wasn't going to be a home run. I was basically just trying to book something and get in and out with 500 shares, and it didn't end up running as far as I wanted to. I ended up only booking 7 cents per share, which was 6 after commissions. And at the same time that I was in this trade, I opened another one on IFMK, which I think was pretty speculative looking back. Even though I was watching this pre-market and I did think it had potential, I feel like I managed this trade very poorly. And this $49 loss or $50 loss, this put me back in the red by about $29 or so. And then later on, I got involved in a trade on RKDA, which I timed poorly. And I ended up closing this in the green, booking 7 cents or whatever it is. But that's less than 1%. And my risk would have been, my risk on this trade was about 3%, just under 3%. So my risk reward on this that I booked was, 1 to 3, which is very, very poor. And what pissed me off about this trade is that as soon as I closed it, at 583, it kept on ripping, and it went all the way up to 620, which was beyond the move that I was trying to capture. I was only trying to capture about 20 cents on this trade. And if I had just been patient, I would have got it. And you can see that I was in this trade for 36 minutes, which is important because it means that my timing was off. And whenever that happens, I tend to close a little bit early because I'm worried about how my idea didn't unfold the way that I thought it would. And my last trade on SGLB, unfortunately, this was one where I got caught in a rug pull type situation. This should have been a green trade, but the price flushed down 10 cents very quickly from 92.5 to all the way down to 81. And I ended up escaping my second half, I think it was at 84 cents. Where I just waited for a small bounce. It ended up retracing most of that rug pull, but I didn't take any chances. I didn't want to see it flush down. It looked to me like it was forming a bear flag, and so I just got out and decided, let's just stop this, because what I was noticing, and if I go back to the times, you'll see that both these two trades here and these two trades here, these pairs of trades were open simultaneously. I had 2 trades open at 2 different times today. And to me, that signifies me being sloppy again. So at this time, when I closed my 4th trade, I thought to myself, like, what are you doing? You waited 4 days to get involved, and then finally you get involved, and you're just repeating the same mistakes that you were trying to correct. And so I wasn't really happy with myself. I was down $30 on the day. And I thought, let's just take that $30. So let's just take that red result and let's just move on. Now, I didn't lock my level 2 at the time that I had this red result. I was planning on coming back in the afternoon and looking for, whatever I could find. And so it wasn't necessarily a day over situation, but I was planning on closing my broker screen as soon as I had finished my recap for my morning trades. And as I opened DAS Trader once again, I saw a halt on NXTC. I saw a halt at like $49 or something. And I thought, what the hell? Like, that's pretty rare. And I looked into it a little bit and I thought, okay, this does look pretty interesting. And I had like a 2-minute powwow with myself as to whether or not I should get involved with this. And initially I was thinking, okay, the share size has to be small. You have to be aware of the spreads are going to be huge, on a play like this, on a stock of this price range. This is pretty far out of your range in a couple of ways, but at the same time, this is exactly the type of setup that I like to play. Halt resumptions are where all my biggest winners of the past have come from, and I do tend to manage them pretty well generally. What I counterpointed with was, well, look at how sloppy your day was so far. Do you really expect yourself to perform well on this trade? With a 50 or 100 share position, I mean, this could turn into a snowball day easily. This could turn into a negative $200 day just like that. You could go from down 30, which is easily manageable, to being down like 250. And I thought to myself, well, do you really want to do that? And the answer I came up with was, yes, I'm going to get involved, but my starter position is going to be 25 shares if I do get involved. So now here we are looking at the video from my NXTC trade. I had planned for my starter position to be 25 shares, and what I was looking for coming out of the halt was to not see a lot of selling coming out of the halt, because as you can see by my level 2, The resumption price was set to be $55, and it originally halted on this one anyway at 51.74. So that's a really substantial gap up, and you can't see it. My watch list has it covered, but this was already at all-time highs at the time that it halted at 51.74. So I was a little bit worried that maybe people who had ridden this up all day from, it opened at 26 or whatever, and it had already nearly doubled. So I didn't want to see a big red candle coming out of this halt in order for me to take my starter. So as I hit play, it will resume, and you'll see me take a starter shortly after that. So here we go at 55, holding 55 pretty well. That's when I take a starter at 57. And you can see, I'll pause it here shortly. I'm going to be pausing this quite a few times. But the spreads open up here pretty soon to about $3, which is where I started getting nervous. Yeah, right here. We're almost at $3 spreads here, 55.85 by 58.46. So at this point in the trade, I was thinking, I don't know if these kind of spreads are going to attract a lot of buying. Granted, this is a huge momentum play, but at the same time, I thought that maybe people won't be willing to just take an immediate $3 hit for every share that they buy just for the chance that it's going to squeeze up. Normally, you'd want at least a little bit tighter spreads, like $1, $1.50, that's acceptable. But when it started opening up to $3, I got a little bit nervous. And for a large part of this trade early on, I had my fingers hovering over the Control Z buttons. I had Control depressed already, and my finger was touching the Z, getting ready to smash it if ever the price dropped. And the level that I decided to watch almost as soon as I got in, because my starter was a little bit higher fill than I wanted at $56.99. The level that I was watching as my primary stop was $55, and my hard stop at this point was $52.50. But I thought there was a very good chance that if it did drop below 55, I would be stopping out for the whole thing and reevaluating later on. So as I continue the video here, you'll see pretty soon it's going to drop down on the bid side to $55, right around that range. There's a little bit of hesitation in the tape, and then we get a bunch of selling, and right here we can see it's hitting 55. And at this point, I was thinking, we really need to hold this 55 level, because I was still interested in adding on this trade. I wasn't done at 25 shares. I wanted to load up. And what I wanted to see before I started adding was a bounce off a low. And the low point that I was really looking at was that 55 level. And thankfully for me, I got exactly my wish. You can see a washout is coming here. We go down to 55, and all this selling in the tape, and yet we hold 55. And then the bids start coming in, as you can see here. And that's what started the ramp back up. And so now what I was looking at this point in the trade, as you can see, I'm starting to type down here in the montage window. I'm typing in an order to add another 25 shares. And the point that I was looking at was the current high of day, which was around $58. So what I'm about to type in is $60 for the price to give myself a little bit of wiggle room if it happens to, jump up really quickly. And as I hit play, you can see that I've got my hand on the buy button. As it breaks 58, I hit the buy button. However, as you can see up here in the top right corner, the fill I eventually got is $1.84 above my intended entry level, which definitely brought my average up quite a bit. And I thought, oh crap, now should I reset my stops? What am I going to do here? And thankfully for me, it kept running, and I was able to hold that 55 stop pretty comfortably. And we broke 60, started squeezing into a pre-halt here. And I'll pause for a minute so you can see that I threw up an order to sell half my position below what was initially the halt level at 63. And I'll hold it up for a little bit, and you can see it's not getting filled. It's not getting filled. I don't like the fact that it's not getting filled, and I don't like the fact that we pre-halted and then broke out of it. I thought there was a possibility that that could be the reversal point, and pretty soon here I'm gonna hit the bid actually at 62.04 for half my position as insurance against the drop back down, because my add-on had brought my average up higher than I was really all that comfortable with. And even though at this point I was only risking about $80 on this trade, it was still, more risk than I wanted to take. At this current point in the trade, I'm up $180. I don't want to see myself go back into the red on this trade. And so that's why I take the insurance exit right there. I just took it at 62.04. And at this point, I reset my stop once again to $60. My stop for the rest was going to be $60. And thankfully for me, we kept squeezing up. I never had to stop out for the rest. And you'll see me pretty soon here throw out an order to sell at 64, I believe it is, or 63.98. Coming up in not too long. You can see we're retesting 60 pretty hard here too. And then we bounce out of that retest going back up. And, it's getting a little bit choppy in the tape too. I didn't really like this. And then once we had that squeeze right there, I really liked that squeeze. I could see the halt level was approaching. I wasn't 100% sure it was going to get there. And so that's why I throw out this order here pretty shortly right there. So I threw out an order to sell 12 shares, which is more or less half my remaining position, at 63.98. And because this is a simulator, I'm only ever going to get filled on the bid. I need the bid to catch up to the ask in order for this order to get filled. And thankfully for me, it happened right there at 64 was the fill I got because there was no order available on the bid at 63.98. And as you can see, we're approaching a halt level here around 65.50. And at this point in the trade, I'm watching the bid side very closely. I want to see where the support is at, if I should be adjusting my stop on the rest, or if I should be holding a flyer. Because my mentality in this trade was that this thing is at very high risk of being halted on a T12 or some kind of long-term halt. And that is something I wanted to avoid like the plague. So I had no intentions whatsoever of holding a flyer through another halt. I did not want to hold through another halt. What I was looking for with this remaining 13 shares was to get out a penny below the eventual halt level if we squeezed into a pre-halt. And so as I hit resume here, you'll see that happen. A couple of times we almost get there, and then we keep bouncing off it. And right here, you can see we did that again at, I think it was 65.02. And now here we are in a situation where the halt level is 66.70, and we're starting to stack up on the bid at 66.02. And I had an order out at 66.87, which was too high for the current ask price. And that's when I realized, nope, that order's no good. And I ended up getting confused at this point in the trade. I'll fast forward just a bit. Yeah, I exited right there. By this point in the trade, I saw that we were in the pre-halt phase, and yet there weren't a lot of bid orders, stacking up. And that confused me. And just based on that confusion alone, and based on the P&L that I had already booked, and most importantly, based on the fact that we appeared to be squeezing into another halt, I decided, okay, that's my limit. This is good enough, and that's when I cut the rest of it loose. And if I resume, you'll see that it halts pretty shortly after. This did end up being the pre-halt phase that worked out. And right there, we end up getting it at 66.02, which was exactly my final exit on this trade. So all in all today, I think I'm pretty happy about some things, and I'm pretty upset about some things as well. My trades in the middle, these three here, not super happy about. The AGRX one, that was okay. I don't mind that one. I think it was a really high potential setup, even though the profit target was tiny. I felt like I timed it very well. I got in and out with 500 shares, which kept my commissions to the absolute minimum, which is important. The other ones I'm not so keen on. The ones below $1 I feel like are maybe an overreach. IFMK I do feel had some potential. SGLB I also think had potential, but I just I don't think it's necessarily a bad trade. I think more than anything, that one was just a case of me getting some order problems. Like both my exits, this one at 94 was supposed to be 96, and this one at 84 was supposed to be 91. So clearly, there were some problems. I underperformed based on things that I wasn't 100% in control of. On the flip side, this trade on NXDC is very, very close to perfect, in my opinion, of how I would like to play a halt resumption. I didn't average down. Even though I had seen support at 55, I did not overreact and start adding at 55, which could have set me up for a really big loss. I waited until my trade was in the green before taking the add-on. And, my add-on was pretty aggressive. It was double. Normally I would go with a half position. In this case, I went with double. And I especially like my exits. As you just saw in the live video, things were happening very quickly, and contrary to the rest of the trades that I took today, and contrary to a lot of the trades that I've been taking in this account recently, my brain was just on fire. I mean, it's funny how when things are moving slow, I make more mistakes and I react poorly to situations, whereas on this trade that's moving super quick and there's so much information to take in, it I don't know, it does something to me that it gives me like extra powers or something, and I get almost like I guess you could say like intellectually turned on by the situation, and that makes me perform better. And in this case, I think I really did perform very well. My last exit especially, that was a top tick. And I feel really good about that one. I like how I staggered my exits. I like how I scaled out of this position. I like basically everything about my NXTC trade. Now, granted, I did, take almost $100 in risk on this trade, but to be able to book 256 in 2 minutes, which is like almost $7,000 an hour if it could happen nonstop, that's a really good return. And I think there is an argument to be had that maybe I could have held through another halt here, but I felt like, I went in with a plan to not play another halt, and I stuck to it. And even though the other one, it did rip up here up to 75 before reversing on this one into a downward halt. And, maybe even though looking back, yeah, I could have made an extra, I guess, $100 on my last piece. I don't think that extra $100 is enough to justify the risk of getting stuck in this trade. Because, what if I had got stuck in this trade for my last piece of 13 shares? Well, that would have deleted a lot of the buying power that I had, and it may have cost me some fees overnight. And so altogether, I feel really fortunate more than anything, because I feel, like I said in the beginning, I feel like I deserve to have a $30 loser today. It just so happened that I decided to open up my broker again, and just so happened that there was NXTC at the top of the list, and I saw that was up like 100%, and I decided to look into it and found a great situation. I found my go-to setup, basically. And it's a setup that I haven't seen in a long time. And because of, the way I played it, I was able to book some good earnings. But on the other hand, I do feel like there was a huge amount of luck involved in just having this situation show up in the first place. Because this run doesn't make a lot of sense. It makes no sense, in fact, on a fundamental basis. And so, no catalyst. At the time, I mean, when it was peaking here at $109, which happened during my recap, the volume was like 2 million, 2.5 million or something. And so to get a 400% move on 2.5 million shares of volume, which is, way beyond all-time highs on this stock, I mean, this is super lucky. This isn't something that should happen necessarily. These moves typically they happen on fundamental catalysts, and this one did not have that. And even the float was fairly high. I have it deleted now, but I believe it was around 4.5 million or something like that, which is fairly high. And so altogether, I'll stop rambling now. But to go back to my daily results, I'm just happy to book this result. I'm happy this wasn't a red trade, or a red day rather, but at the same time, I'm super mindful of the fact that I do believe I should be closing down $30 today. And the difference I made with that NXTC trade, it's over $245 of difference. And I'm really mindful of that going into tomorrow. I'm not considering it a case where I crushed it today. I didn't crush it today. I just had one really good trade. And that one really good trade isn't necessarily going to be available for me tomorrow. And like I mentioned in a few recaps ago, what I want to see from myself is I want to see myself, book green days when things are slow, when things are dead. I want to see myself consistently make money on, 15-cent moves, not these, $10 moves. If we go back to my broker, I mean, my first exit or my first entry to my last exit is $9. That's not going to happen every day, even on a $55 stock or whatever. That's just not going to happen. So going into tomorrow, I'm really focused on just resetting to the attitude I had coming into today, and trying to avoid the things that I did today early, because I almost had a situation today where I lost the opportunity to book this home run on NXTC because my first four trades were kind of questionable and poorly executed. I could have just as easily closed my broker and come back at 4 p.m. to make this recap. As it happened, it just so happens that I decided to make this recap right away. And because of that, I was able to capture this situation. And that's why I think that this result is based more on luck than it is on, anything else. So that's a wrap for me today. And hopefully, this NXTC situation, even though it did retrace a huge percentage of its move here, it is kind of holding at the VWAP. And maybe, even though we haven't seen sympathy momentum so far today, it's now 1:26 p.m. Even though there's been no sympathy yet, I do think that this kind of move is, this is what we need to start another wave. So I will be looking out for all kinds of different price ranges tomorrow to try and find the sympathy coming off of this move on NXTC.